Alright, before we get into this video, I've got to put the warning out now, the disclaimer, that there are some really quite distressing scenes in this video. So if that's not something you want to be a part of, click off now. I'll try and put something in just before those things happen, but I've just got to let you know, it is quite distressing. There's no real easy way to put it, but rhinos are heading for extinction. At the beginning of the 20th century, there were roughly 500,000 rhino in the wild. That number has dropped drastically, and today there are only 25,000 left, and it's only heading one way. The main source of this is poaching. Certain Chinese medicines use rhino horn, and it's very valuable. This means there's a high demand, and people go to extreme lengths to get their hands on the horns. And year on year, rhinos are being poached in their thousands, brutally murdered for what makes them iconic. There are preventative measures in place like anti-poaching units who patrol reserves, and then something else that I'm taking part in today. Alright, so welcome along. You join me from the Greater Kruger region of South Africa. I've got wildlife everywhere around me. There's elephants, giraffes, zebras, just all over the river. I actually just saw a hippo cruise down the river. Behind me there's baboons and impala. It's crazy. There's so much wildlife out here. It's mad. And I've been invited out here by African Impact. African Impact is an organisation that provides the opportunity to travel as well as make an impact to that area. Whether you want to join a research team to aid conservation and learn about what goes on into making that happen, or if you want to become a better photographer but also chip in with some conservation efforts. In the Greater Kruger range of South Africa, you can do just that. You'll be out on game drives looking for wildlife, camera trap monitoring, removing potential wildlife hazards like old wire, and enjoying the African sunsets. It's a great way to travel to a new area and also do a bit for that area. If this interests you and you want to learn more about how to get involved, check out the link in the description. Now, along with that, African Impact sent me out to do a rhino dehorning. Now, as I'm sure you're aware, rhinos get poached in their thousands every single year, and it's really quite a sad thing. And one of the preventative measures for rhinos being poached is to actually dehorn them while they are still alive. Now, I'm doing it this way, where I'm talking to the camera about a week after we did this event, because in the moment I found it really quite emotional, and I didn't want to give an emotional viewpoint in that moment. So I've collected my thoughts, I've collected my emotions, and we're going to roll through it through this video, and I'm going to show you what a rhino dehorning looks like. So to start off, we went over to this reserve and we joined up with this crew who go about doing this regularly. So there was a vet, there was a helicopter where they dart the rhinos from. There was all sorts going on. It was really quite professional.
To actually interrogate a question there, but
so essentially what happens is the helicopter flies up into the air and it goes searching for some rhino. Now, on this specific trip, there was one rhino who needed to be transferred to a different reserve. So the first thing we were off to go and do was find this big male rhino. So the helicopter's off, it's zooming, and we chase after it in a big convoy of cars, and we're on the back of these cars, and it's quite a rocky ride. Now, the first sad bit comes into play here. So we're driving, we're following the helicopter, and then we notice the helicopter is stationary. So we're thinking, okay, there's a rhino there and they've got it. We're driving through, and then I managed to see this rhino. It's a beautiful looking thing. It's huge, big, colossal animal, and it's got this fantastic looking horn on him, right? And I'm filming, and as we drive closer, it was really quite sad, but this rhino, through being darted, collapses. I wasn't prepared for that, and I found it really quite emotional at the time. So for me in this moment, it was quite an eye-opener. I knew what we were setting out for, and I knew what we were going to do, but to actually see it live in the flesh and happening was, I don't know, there's a lot of emotions going on there. Like I was quite sad, and it made me sad seeing such a big animal in distress like that. One, two, three. So what's happening off behind me is they're putting a microchip on it. They're getting him set ready to transport just over into this trailer here. So as he starts to wake up, we'll guide him into this trailer, and then he gets to go off to a different area. I get why these things have to happen. I get why these rhinos need to be moved around, because actually a few days before we did this, one of the rhinos in this reserve was poached. So this fella is eventually had a blindfold on and he had earplugs put in, and then he was like essentially escorted towards this trailer in which he was like put onto to then move on to a different reserve. Part of it I found quite distressing. So they were using cattle prods to get this rhino to move, and I didn't like it. So eventually this rhino is on the trailer, and then that's it, off it goes. It's going to a new home in a new reserve. That made me emotional, and I think this is going to be grim. There was 2 dehornings that were going to happen on this day, and the helicopter was off and away looking for the next target. Same process again, the helicopter's hovering. We think, okay, they've got a rhino. They dart it from the helicopter. Helicopter lands, we all get out, we go over to these rhinos. So we've got one rhino here pretty much incapacitated. So we've got one. He's decided he doesn't want to go down. Now, one of the most traumatizing things for me was seeing these rhinos under this like immobilizing dart thing. Now, in order to calm the rhinos down, they get blindfolded, they have earplugs put in, and they're positioned in a way so these horns can come off, right? It was a real sort of efficient process. It was a real like methodically done thing. You can obviously tell that these people have done this quite a few times before. Everyone had their job, everyone did their job really well. And these rhinos were immobilized for only 5 minutes to 10 minutes at a time. It was very quick, efficient, try and make this as painless as possible for the rhino. Now again, and these things are quite distressing, it's just not nice to see these animals in that situation. But then you have to flip it to that point of, if this doesn't happen, these rhinos just get killed. They will get killed. The horn and part of the face just gets ripped off essentially, and it's just a complete waste of life. So this sort of has to happen, and it's one of those like pick your poisons, and obviously you'd rather the rhino was alive, so that's the poison you pick. But it is distressing to see. Now I'm going to try my best to blur everyone's faces here, or get everyone's face out of this like image that I'm about to show you. But one of the things I really didn't like, and it didn't sit well with me at the time, was when these rhinos are in like their distress, they're immobilized, the legs are shaking, the blindfolds on, people were taking group photos, and I don't know, I really didn't like it. They had a big group photo where they were sort of like posing with this rhino with a blindfold in a vulnerable position. And in that moment, it almost felt like we were at a trophy hunt. Like, we're not, like it's not what it is, but in that moment I was like, I don't like this. It just didn't sit right with me. So the actual like rhino dehorning process is really quite quick. So they've got almost like a chainsaw. So they get this rhino down, they get ready to cut it, and this electrical chainsaw looking thing just goes through. Now the rhino horn is really thick, right? So it takes like a minute or so to get through. But essentially the rhino horn comes off, goes in a vault. Now at the time, I did ask one of the people working on this, like I was holding this rhino horn, and I asked them, I was like, how much does this go on like the Chinese black market? He said, you're holding 1 million rand. So that's like South African currency. 1 million rand in English terms is £43,000. And that was just one rhino horn. So this is the rhino dehorning. So it takes quite a lot to put through it. It's one rhino horn. So you can see now, both horns gone. There is a lot of money in rhino horn, and you can see why these things happen, right? We're back into the car, we're off to the next one. Helicopter's in the air, finds another couple, and then it's bang, tranquilized, down we go, everyone's out, same thing. This time it was a mother and calf, and this made me really sad.
So here we've got a rhino calf. It's also going to face the same. You see where it got tranquilized? There's a little baby. This is really sad.
And I think the sadness came because they were trying to communicate to each other. So the road had split them, so the mother was on this side and the calf was on this side, and they were both trying to communicate, and nah, I did not enjoy that. Now, one thing I will say is, as these rhinos are immobilized, once everything's done and they're ready to go, the vet comes along and he puts a reversal to the immobilizer on, and literally within a minute the rhino's back up and running around again. So it's I suppose that's quite a nice thing to see, but I don't know, it's one of those things where I found it quite distressing.
So here they're trying to get the rhino on its feet. You can see how many people it's taking to push even this baby up. Okay, baby rhino's up. One horn down. So the vet's just ushered everyone to leave this area because he's going to put the reverse on the tranquilizer on. And that means you've got a baby rhino here who could be stomping about, so we've all got to go.
It's quite a scary thing, hey, because even a baby rhino could absolutely smash me apart.
The baby rhino has just gone into the bush there to meet the mother rhino who's just over there. They've been communicating with each other, and I think they're going to run off together. I can sort of see them through the bush, but it's a really difficult thing to spot. If you listen carefully, you might be able to hear them chatting to each other.
Did the baby catch up?
But essentially, that is it. That is rhino dehorning. So the whole process took about 2 hours, chasing after the rhinos, darting the rhinos, getting them on the trailer, dehorning. 5 rhinos done and dusted within 2 hours. So I've said quite a lot. It was really efficient, and it was really an eye-opener for me, because I think back home in the UK, you don't really take into consideration that this stuff happens. But being there, essentially on the front lines of like rhino conservation and rhino poaching, to hear that a rhino was poached a few days before, to then see this stuff in action, it really hit home for me. And I've seen rhino in zoos, I've seen them quite a few times, but this was the first ever wild rhino for me, and it gave me a newfound appreciation for rhinos. So I think that's where I'm going to leave it. I just want to say thank you to African Impact for allowing us to be here in South Africa and to show us what rhino dehorning is. It was a privilege, but at the same time it was a harrowing privilege. It was a complete conflict of emotions. I understand why it happens, but I was really sad at the same time. So I think I'll leave it there. That is rhino dehorning. It's a sad process, but possibly necessary. So thank you all for watching. If you want to help with some rhino conservation, I'll put some links in the description, and you can click those and go and see if you can do a bit. Thank you all for watching though. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.